The views and opinions expressed on this program do not reflect the company, owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
It's Tuesday, the 28th and final day of February 2023. Welcome to Bermuda's Daily Talk Show. It's the Daily Hour brought to you by Medical House, One Communications, and Lindo's. I'm Jamal Hartman, and Maya Palacio will be with us in a bit to bring you the latest in her news break brought to you by People's Pharmacy in a bit. Yeah, it's just me today. And you know, when it's just me, I tend to get in a little bit of trouble. So, yeah, maybe, you know what? I should have prepared a joke for Maya. That's what I should have did. I don't have a joke though, folks. I don't have a joke this morning, but it's just me. Sherry said that she doesn't want to speak to me this morning. Centra said she's had enough of me after one day this week. Larry said, you're on your own, bro. And Phil said, whatever. So yeah, Maya was the only one that said, I'll tolerate you for about 5 minutes on a news break. So it is just me. But I hope you all stick around and enjoy the show today. Greetings, everyone, and thanks for making us part of your daily routine. A good one today, as we welcome Rashida Godwin on. We're discussing the evolution of racism in Bermuda. And let me tell you why I feel like this is such an important conversation, especially on this show, is we live in the age of diversity, equity, and inclusion, whatever that means to you. And because of things like diversity, equity, and inclusion, some folks really think that things like racism just disappeared, don't exist. But apparently it still exists, just not in the forms that we're used to seeing it or how we know it. So I'm looking forward to the conversation with Rashida from Titan Tours. The Daily Play is a remember when. So yeah, I guess it's just going to be the audience and me doing the Daily Play. Folks, make sure you subscribe to our website, follow us on social media to stay up to date for all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to improve the community. So just go on thedailyhour.com. You'll be prompted to just subscribe. Just put your email address in. We probably have only sent 2 emails this year, probably 1 actually. We don't send emails a lot, but when there's something happening, you will receive an email of how you can get involved and become a part of what we're trying to accomplish and achieve in our community. See, Larry's asking for a joke, but Maya, I don't know if she won't. Well, I don't know where my joke book is, though, you all. So I'll have to save the joke for tomorrow, folks. Joke's coming for tomorrow. So look, a lot's going on in the community. So many different things we can discuss. Yesterday, Sancha and I took on medical tourism and the TA form. Well, something interesting has come out of the TA form discussion, which was in the OBA budget reply, according to the leader who read it, Cole Simons. He'd reintroduced the TA form, the travel authorization fee, the TA fee, which in brackets said supported by IB, which is international business. Well, there's some fallout from that because according to the Royal Gazette, the One Bermuda Alliance last night appeared to be on the verge of a leadership crisis as sources close to its deputy leader revealed he is near to publicly calling for Cole Simons to quit as head of the party. The move comes after Mr. Simons was forced into a U-turn on plans to reintroduce travel authorization fees following party backlash. A source close to Jarian Richardson told the Royal Gazette Jarian is very close to calling for the resignation of Cole Simons as OBA leader. Jarian is considering all his options. Complaints about the leadership style of Mr. Simons could trigger high-profile resignations from the party, the Royal Gazette understands. Criticism over the way Mr. Simons pledged the OBA to tax increases without consultation with members of his party in his reply to the budget last Friday was heaped on Mr. Simons at an emergency caucus meeting held on Sunday, which was described as hot in tone by sources present. Caucus members had to throw the kitchen sink at the OBA leader to get him to change course on plans to bring back the contentious $40 fee, as well as the promise to look at adding value-added taxes on healthcare, according to persons present. The situation comes in the wake of Mr. Simons having to give a public apology to his colleagues for the error of judgment in his official reply to budget. Requests from MPs to be shown the budget reply before it was delivered fell on deaf ears, according to senior party figures who were blindsided by the tax hike proposals, including the TA hike, which the OBA had campaigned to abolish. Well, let me just go over to my Twitter, because it's basically, it seems like it's a crap show over on the OBA. This is just assumption based on that. Like, the leader went ahead and done something that he chose to do. Now, remember yesterday, I actually read to you all a reply from, I had tweeted that I'm not one to defend the OBA, but I'm pretty sure they, like many other business minds, have always said to just include the TA fee in the ticket pricing and eliminate the form. I could be wrong, though. Well, someone by the name of, what's the person name? Sorry. It was a politician. Here we go. She's named Elizabeth Deacon. Someone named Elizabeth Deacon responded to that, saying many of us in the OBA are strongly opposed to the TA completely. No tax, no form. Our commitment to the electorate is to raise revenue and cut taxes. That is the only way forward for our country. Well, that, goes against what Mr. Simons read. Well, last evening, Douglas Ducuto, Senator Douglas Ducuto, responded to my tweet. He says, adding to Liz, in fact, the entire caucus, MPs, senators, and the candidates is opposed to the TA. So I responded asking Senator Ducuto, so it's just the leader who isn't opposed. The response was, the caucus has spoken. Here's what pisses me off about the arrogance of that response. I then said, that's not what I asked, though. But hey, politicians continue to prove that they are all the same. There's so many issues with the One Bermuda Alliance, and I'm not going to be that person who says, sit down, shut up, and go away. No, I'm not going to be that person, because that's not how things get accomplished. But the leadership is obviously poor. But the response from Senator Ducuto is also poor. You cannot treat the electorate the way that, well, I'm not the electorate, actually, they took me off the registry, but that's neither here or there. But if someone's asking you a direct question, why, when you need votes, are you giving indirect answers? It was a very simple question to Mr. Ducuto. Is it just the leader who isn't opposed? And you said the caucus has spoken. That's not how you get the black vote, brother. That's not how you get new votes. So the question of the morning is very simple. Very simple. What are your thoughts on the state of the opposition One Bermuda Alliance? What are your thoughts on the opposition, the One Bermuda Alliance? Because at this point, I cannot see them troubling the government of Bermuda. And that is a sad thing, because in my lifetime, this is probably the worst, and I'm sure many of you would agree, this is probably the worst government Bermuda has had in my lifetime. And I've been around since 1981. This is probably the worst government. And the worst part about it is that the opposition is so weak and just as incompetent based on Cole Simon's recent actions and responses from those like Senator Ducuto, who can't answer a direct question directly. What are your thoughts about the state of the opposition One Bermuda Alliance? What are your thoughts, folks? Charles H. Jefferson II says, what opposition? I think that's a fair question. I think that's a fair question. I think it's a fair question, Charles. What opposition? I don't even, it's easy to sit back and continue to question what the government of Bermuda is doing. It's easy to obviously see everything that's wrong in what they're doing. And trust me, a bad opposition doesn't make a good government, nor the other way around. But the same way how the current government would do well to take a page out of the previous government's book in terms of things that worked, this opposition would do well to take a page out of the previous opposition's book. Do well. You got to meet people where they are to engage them. But the fact that at its probably weakest point, the government of Bermuda at its weakest point, and we have an opposition at an even weaker point, that's a problem. Do we not see anything wrong with that? Bermuda and Bermudians deserve better than what the One Bermuda Alliance is giving them as an opposition. We already know we deserve better than the government that we have. But as an opposition, how the hell does the leader of the opposition go and do a budget speech without sharing with his colleagues what he's going to say? What kind of, are you kidding me? This man, Michelle White, she says, unfortunately, they appear fragmented at best. Even if they oppose their leader, they must show face and be seen to support and deal with issues internally. Speak united. They have a lot of work to do. They're definitely a fractured group. And I tell you, they only have 6 MPs, 3 senators, and then obviously they have, their caucus, which is other people involved in the party. They need not be or show these kinds of signs of weakness. Sean DeShield says, incompetent at best, clueless and completely out of touch with reality. Folks, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the state of the opposition One Bermuda Alliance? What are your thoughts? Now, okay, yes or no question. Let me ask this, yes or no question. Do you think it's in the best interest of Bermuda if the OBA folds? Do you think the OBA should just say, you know what, we're done, and then let another political party arise? What are your thoughts on that? Yes or no? Should the OBA pack it up? Yes or no? Answer that. Yes or no? Michelle White says, yes, I thought that the response would have been a collective response. Very surprised to hear otherwise. That's the response that the opposition leader delivered in the House, where apparently his colleagues were not aware, it seems, that he was going to say some of the things that he said, which is shameful. It's not golf, it's not tennis, it's football, it's basketball, it's a team sport. Opposition leader. It's a team sport. What are your thoughts, though, folks? Do you think the opposition party, do you think the One Bermuda Alliance should pack it up? Do you think as a political party, they should say, you know what, we're done. Just pack it up and let another political party rise? Do you think it's time for them to go? Do you think it's time for them to go? Michelle White says no. She says no. She says no. What are your thoughts, folks? Do you think that the OBA should call it a day? Do you think, you know what, this is the last straw? There's no way they're going to be able to oust the Bermuda Progressive Labor Party as government. It's time for them to go. What are your thoughts? Do you think it's time for them to go? Sam B says, no, that's unhealthy. Cole didn't do what other leaders haven't done before. The OBA reply is the issue. Traveling Trotty says no also. I'm going to agree with the audience so far. I say no. I said, because people forget, I think it was the early 80s. Correct me if I'm wrong, audience. You all older than me, most of you. But correct me if I'm wrong. I believe back in the early 80s, the PLP was down to about, very few MPs. And we had, 40 MPs back then? But they were down to very few. And, they didn't go away, and within the next 2 decades, the PLP was in political power. Now, some people may say, yeah, but the PLP had a better foundation to push forward and grow and go on. But at the end of the day, where we are today is not necessarily where we can be or will be if we keep going at it, if we have a proper plan and a strategy to achieve that plan. So, but what are your thoughts, folks? What are your thoughts on the state of the One Bermuda Alliance as an opposition? Sean DeShield says, Cole has his head so far up his ass, he don't even know what day of the week it is. Charles H. Jefferson II says, should we start asking, quote, is this the worst group of elected MPs in our history, end quote? Yes, there are some good ones on both sides, but collectively, there's little faith in both sides. Well, I think it's a combination of both as well, Charles. I think for the most part, here's how I look at it. You have people who have stayed at the table too long, right? You know, they've been involved way too long. And this is not to say that people with good experience can't stick to the wicket, but sometimes it's best to know when to step aside. You know, they say the greatest Muhammad Ali stayed too long, right? He didn't retire when he should have. I think that's one problem. Another problem is we have a lot of people who turn to politics because they're not successful at anything else. Like they haven't been successful entrepreneurs. They haven't been able to hold jobs and had successful careers. So you have that problem. And then you're left with people who, well, you know what? I have a great career. I've done well in business, but they need something to satisfy their ego, right? And so they want to get into politics because their ego says, I need to feel good about this. I need to feel well. So I think we do have some challenges with the political class that we have. And I do believe that it can be argued that this is the worst group of elected officials Bermuda's had in my lifetime. Previously, you know, it was made up of business people. And some people may say, well, how did those business people work out for Black people, right? And that's true. It is. I mean, just because they were good at business doesn't mean they're in the best interest of all people, right? Because at the end of the day, business people and businesses exist to do what? Generate revenue in hopes of making a profit. Sometimes, and a lot of times, it can be argued at the expense of people. So what are your thoughts on the state of the opposition One Bermuda Alliance? Michelle says, no, they don't need a fill. They need to fix the OBA. Sean DeShield says, bring back the milkman as leader. That is former Premier, the Honorable Michael Dunkley. Sam Cat Place says, all I'm saying is, when are we going to get a viable opposition party? Geesh. Well, again, I go back to what I said earlier. I think that the OBA would do well to learn how to be an effective opposition from the PLP. And the PLP would do well to actually kind of try to do some of the things that made the UBP and OBA an effective fiscal government. Notice I was specific about what I said they were effective at. Renee Simmons says, just proves nothing has changed. Poor government, even poorer opposition. What leader doesn't discuss imperative matters with their party? We have no choice. We need an opposition no matter how weak. Improve. I think we're all in agreement. I think we're all in agreement. Sean DeShield says maybe the Honorable Curtis Dickinson needs to switch teams like flip-flop Furbit. I think he's referring to the Honorable Minister William Furbit. Michelle White says create one party, call it the People's Political Party, take all expertise to collective responsibility. I think that would be dangerous. I think having one political party would be dangerous. I mean, here's what I think. I think we're at a place in Bermuda right now where we don't necessarily have an effective opposition. But I think what's worse than that is we don't have an effective electorate. And I think the electorate actually has to take as much responsibility as the weak opposition. Why do I say that? When the One Bermuda Alliance was in power, the electorate would have a parade almost every other week, finding something to march about against the government of the day. Today, it's almost as if people have lost their ability to march, their will, the desire to stand up for themselves. So now that if you take away an effective opposition, you take away the electorate, I don't even know if the unions still stand for this kind of stuff. I'm being honest with you. I tell you, the only way change is going to come to Bermuda, and take this to the bank. The only way and the only group of people that can hold the government of Bermuda accountable at this point and win is the private sector. Because the thing about the private sector, they don't need the government of Bermuda. The government of Bermuda needs them. Keep that in mind. We're going to bring in Maya Palacio. We've got the news break coming up now. And after that, we're going to have another conversation because Rashida Godwin from Titan Tour, she's coming on. We're talking about the evolution of racism in Bermuda. And I think this conversation is extremely important, especially the response from, I want to revisit Senator Douglas DeCuto, because I've said on this show before, I think some white politicians in Bermuda are most dangerous because they like flowers, they like humanity and equality and all that. But something about them rubs me the wrong way, because there's a big difference between being pro-equality but not pro-justice. Big difference. And I see a lot of them running on this equality thing, but very few of them are loud and boisterous about justice. Stick with us after the news break. Let's bring Maya Palacio in while I take a sip of water.
Jamal, how is that a sip of water and not a sip of tea? You really missed the ball there.
I'm sorry, I have to drink water every morning. No, Maya, truth be told, but the reason I don't drink tea on the show is because I just came from running 3 miles, right? And I'm afraid to drink anything outside of water after I do any form of exercise. That's just me. The only other thing would be like the Powerade Zero. So accept my apologies for embarrassing you and not having tea in there.
Well, it's just a mug, and the conversation. Just would have been perfect. Anyway, good morning, everyone. This is the Daily Hour Newsbreak brought to you by People's Pharmacy. And today we're starting out with, again, very upsetting news. We continuously keep having collisions on this island. I really want us to think about what we can do as an island to help stop this, or what we need to do to help speak about this and just get it more of a conversation on the island, because I believe it has become almost like an epidemic on this island, and it is very serious. So yesterday, Monday, around 11:30 a.m., there was a serious collision at the junction of Cedar Avenue and Dundonald Street involving a driver and a pedal cyclist. On arrival at the scene, it was asserted that a man driving the motor car was headed east along Dundonald Street, crossing the junction with Cedar Avenue, when it's believed that a man riding a pedal cycle south on Cedar Avenue ran a red light and collided with the motor car. The pedal cyclist was transported to the hospital and is being treated for head injuries. The driver of the car is not reported to be injured. Any witnesses, please call 211.
So hold on. This is a new accident. I thought this is something different than yesterday.
This is something different than what I reported yesterday. This happened yesterday.
I'm okay. So based on what you started with, it is happening too much, because when you started speaking, I'm like, it's another one, or is she repeating yesterday's news? Yeah.
No, it's a new one. This is a new one that just happened yesterday morning.
Okay. So the paddle cyclist ran a light according to the report and struck a car. Well, yes. I'll say this much. I mean, hope that person is okay. Hope they, recover well. But I did have an experience while I was in Bermuda. I don't call me names, but I don't overtake or whatnot. So there were these 2 paddle cyclists riding along Harbor Road, and they weren't in single file, right? And you can see cars that are in front of me just trying to overtake, but it's hard to overtake on Harbor Road. Look, I believe in being courteous on the roads. I believe in being very considerate. I found it so inconsiderate how those bikes were riding next to each other and not in single file, so at least traffic can pass. And then they started doing it again once we came off of Harbor Road and went onto Middle Road. We've complained for years, people, taxis think they own the road, this person. At the end of the day, none of us own the roads. It's a privilege for every last one of us to operate any kind of vehicle, be it motor or not, on the roads. So let's respect the roads equally. That's
I'll
my
agree to that. But I also say I think there is some way in which they have to ride for safety precautions. I don't entirely know, but I know Bermuda doesn't have bike lanes like other countries do. Like in school, tons of bike lanes in Canada. And I'm like, why doesn't Bermuda have that? We're so small. And it would just make sense for people to bicycle everywhere and not have to always drive their cars. But
Mhm.
I know it'll be a lot of construction and yada, yada, yada to get bike lanes in Bermuda.
Right.
But I believe they ride in that way for safety precautions, but I don't know 100%.
Mm. Well, and if they do, I would say I think we need to revisit that, because I think it could have caused a big issue when you have so many drivers that are not respectful themselves, willing to go around a blind corner to get around them. So I'm not quite sure that's the safest way to do it. But again, I mean, who am I? I'm not an expert. I just noticed it while I was riding. So yeah, if they're following the law, for to them. Sorry.
Next up on the list, more about traffic. So I mentioned last week in the news that they were having some road sobriety checkpoints over the weekend. Wow, here it is, 11 impaired driving arrests during the checkpoints this past weekend, and 2 stolen motorcycles were actually recovered. As mentioned in the news, in this period, 1,868 motorists spoke with police officers, and a sobriety assessment was conducted. 24 motorists were tested on roadside sobriety testing devices, and 11 of those motorcycle riders failed the alcohol analyzer test at the Hamilton police station, and they were all arrested for impaired driving offenses. In the month of February of 2023 to date, 27 motorists have been arrested for impaired driving offenses. This compared to 11 motorists for the same period in 2022. So we're getting worse in Bermuda. That's what this is telling us.
So Maya,
Mhm.
I was when I left you guys on Friday night from the Bacardi event,
Yeah.
I went through my first police check.
How'd it go?
I didn't know what to expect. I had never been through one, so it was on East Broadway. So going on East Broadway, and I was wondering, why is the traffic taking so long? So I go Harbor Road, so I'm in the. There was nothing in the right lane, so I said, well, let me just go in the right lane and go forward. And then I noticed going up that hill. So I guess they have the people on the hill and East Broadway. So if someone tries to get away, they can get them going up that hill there, right? So I said, oh, it must be a check. And so they just checked the license plate and just, okay, evening, okay, keep going, and just I went. But it was interesting to see. It was definitely smooth sailing for myself. I mean, I would love to have done the breathalyzer, see if they would have detected Heineken Zero, right? But yeah, it was an interesting experience. But now I will say, I will ask this question of the audience. By law, do you have to carry your license on you? Does anyone know that?
I had an experience when I just got a bike, and I remember being pulled over because let's say you're on East Broadway and I want to go up the exact same hill, but it was at a time where you couldn't apparently.
Mhm,
I didn't know this at the time. So I
mhm,
went up the hill trying to get to Cedar Bridge, and then I got
mhm,
stopped. And then I was like, oh, this is like my 4th month riding a bike. I'm sorry,
mhm.
I didn't know. And they asked me for my license, and I was like, I didn't have my license on me that day because I didn't bring my wallet to school. And so they were like, you have to have your license on you at all
Okay.
times. But they just checked that I had my license through the little computer thing or whatever. And that was
Right.
that. And I was just like, oh, okay. So now I think I know I have to have my license on me all the time, but I don't know if it's like
But
law, like
that's it. I was just like, because I have my license, I'm just like, am I supposed to have it on me? Because I mean, as a brother in the US, you always got to have an ID on you. But it's just something, I don't take it out of my passport case. But that was the only thing I was just like, man, I don't have my license on me. Yeah.
yeah. I'm
Okay.
not entirely sure, but yeah, we can find out. But in addition, during those exercises, 5 road users were arrested on outstanding court apprehension warrants. 6 were issued like official writing warnings, and again, 2 people were arrested for taking a motorcycle without the owner's consent, and 2 stolen motorcycles were recovered. You continue. So yeah, that was the end of that one.
Okay. Interesting. I look, at the end of the day, I just would love for us to be more respectful on our roads and you know, take our time getting where we got to go. So yeah.
Exactly. Okay, next one up, you may have heard about this. This one came actually from the Gazette, but there are some issues with the potato farmers and actually getting potatoes. So Bermuda farmers warn the public of a potato shortage due to delays in government planning. That is what has been said. So on February 27th, with the World Gazette, a spokesperson from the Bermuda Farmers Association says, contrary to the minister's statement that all is well with the potato growing this calendar year, sadly, the harvest forecast will be halved because seed potatoes were allowed in only at the 11th hour at the end of last year. They also said the strawberry runner imports are also late in arrivals, which delays the crops to the public likely this spring. This is due to flawed permit process and not due to lack of arable land. The largest growers have not planted potatoes due to the lateness and uncertainty of supply, which precludes them from committing ground to this crop. This was avoidable and points the finger at the process of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources has in place to administer the importance of seeds and live agricultural matters.
So, I mean, you know, potatoes are considered a starch, right? I'm going to take from Looky Looky, Kimwana Eve. Folks, shortage of potatoes, that likely probably means price is going to go up. Well, move on to sweet potatoes or find a healthier starch. I guess that's the solution.
Yeah. And the ministry had a response to this. They said that the Bermuda Farmers Association claimed that this year's potato harvest will be less. This year, they completely refute it. Furthermore, they say the number of bags imported is based on the amount ordered by the participating farmers, which amounted to 1,056 bags of potatoes. And the amount that the farmers could import was not limited by government, says the ministry. In comparison, they had 1,430 bags the previous year in the 2021 crop. But again, as stated from the farmers, the biggest the biggest farmers who actually planted potatoes did not get it this year because of the uncertainty of when they would actually arrive. So that is a reason why they did not order the potatoes. So that's why it is less than last year.
Interesting. Sounds like government's got another fight on their hands.
Yes, it does. So moving on to some budget statements. Today I have one coming from the Ministry of Social Development and Seniors. Their budget shows that they are getting an increase by 8%, reflecting a total budget allocation of $26,439. Here's a list of the organizations the ministry provides funds to and how much they will be providing for 2023 year. So you can take a look at it here and just see how much money is allocated to all the different types of organizations throughout Bermuda. Just let you guys take a look at that. Meals on Wheels, 50,000. You got Summer Haven, a residential home, 600,000. And then you got nursing and residential homes, over $1 million, and so on and so forth. Age concern, 25,000.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
What else you got for us?
Well, some happier news coming up for you guys. The Skyport Magic Mile will take place this upcoming Saturday, March the 4th. And you can sign up your children for this amazing event. It hasn't been in Bermuda for quite some time, so it's great to have it back. Your child can start as young as 4 years old to compete. The Pacers Magic Mile has been a staple in athletic competition, and the love for track has grown from this event for so many athletes in Bermuda. If you see a gift in a child, I encourage you to just encourage them to keep going forward. Skyport has also announced the free activities throughout the day and some of the prizes, like a school prize where cash donations will be awarded to the schools with the highest participation numbers. That goes for private and public schools. So apply, and encourage young people to have fun.
I'm going to say something extremely appropriate right now, but I want to identify as a 10-year-old so I can win a race. I'm just saying.
I really hope that you actually get on that court. I really hope you try to race a 10-year-old.
Trust me, they would still beat me. Folks, you know me. I do my own thing. That's why I run early mornings when it's dark and no one can see. So they don't see how slow I go. But anyway, sorry, Maya. What else you got for us?
Well, closing out, I have the weather, and I know it looks like it's going to be such a bright, nice day, but it's going to probably get really rough later, guys. It's looking like it's going to have some clouds, some showers developing midday, and a chance of even some gale force winds around the showery periods. And we have a high of 71 degrees Fahrenheit today, though.
All righty. Well, hopefully you get the best of the weather. Well, today's days of the year, real quickly. In the U.S., it's a National Public Sleeping Day, which was founded with the purpose of encouraging people to be sure they get enough sleep. We talk about sleep a lot on this show. Consider all of the times it's been a delight to see someone else have a bit of a nap in public. Well, whether it's on a bus or a waiting room in a medical office, babies sleep in public all the time, of course, and perhaps they are onto something. take some time to enjoy this day to the fullest by getting a little sleep in public. So, folks, it's Happy National Public Sleeping Day to you. So, Maya, where's the craziest place? Audience, answer this question. Where's the craziest place you've ever slept in public? You never slept on an airplane? That's public.
Yeah, okay. All right, sure. An airplane. I can go to sleep on an airplane, yeah. I feel a little bit safer on an airplane, but I still be holding everything in my hand and in my jacket. Like I don't play on that. Like I rarely sleep even here, so my trust issues are this low.
I'm trying to think. Trains, maybe. Train station. I'll have to think. Folks, let us know, where's the craziest place you've ever fell asleep in public? And happy National Public Sleeping Day, folks. Hey, if your job's you believe it's a public place, well, feel free to fall asleep at work today. Just don't blame me when they can you. All right. There's consequences to your actions. Maya, thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
Have a great conversation, Deron.
All righty. All right, folks, let us know the craziest place you've ever fallen asleep. We're going to take a quick break. We've got Rashida Godwin from Titan Tours coming up. We're talking about the evolution of racism in Bermuda. Ooh, this should be a doozy. Stick with us.
People's ACW, located at King Edward VII Memorial Hospital, carries over-the-counter medicines, toys, cards, and even toiletries. Our knowledgeable staff are there whether you're at emergency, visiting family, or a member of BHB staff, to show you our best even when you're feeling your worst. People's ACW, we're here for you.
Welcome to the new bulk store, Lindo's Next Level. Wake up in the morning with enough coffee to keep you running throughout the entire day. Your pet at home deserves the best. Stock up on dog food to keep your puppy happy. Need a quick, tasty lunch at home? Your chicken nuggets will be jumping right out of the freezer. What's a movie night without popcorn? You can never have too much. Lindo's Next Level. Why go anyplace else?
Mom's celebrating her 70th birthday next month. Have you noticed her age is catching up with her?
Yeah. Plus, she's having a hard time getting up and around like she's used to. I would sure hate to see her fall.
At Medical House Limited, we can help make life situations easier. We have electric beds, motorized scooters, bath stools, walkers, you name it.
Mom's been real good to us. We'll get her birthday and Christmas gifts from Medical House.
Medical House has relocated next to the Dandytown Field, number 6 Bakery Lane, Pembroke. Telephone 292-3622.
Alrighty, welcome back to the big show. I'm Jamel Hartman. It's the Daily Hour brought to you by Medical House, One Communications, Lindo's, and People's Pharmacy. Folks, please make sure you're subscribed to our website, thedailyhour.com, and follow us on social media to stay up to date to all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic so that we can continue to do our part to improve our community one little bit at a time. Without further ado, well, let's check what you all have said. Where's the craziest place you have slept in public? We've got a park bench in the rain. So the rain didn't wake you up, Diane. Interesting. Park bench in the rain. You must have been tired. Ebony Susan says, on the bus, mouth open and all. Oh, you were catching flies, as my nana used to say. Catching flies. Karen Simmons says, train in Germany. She fell asleep on a train in Germany. My. Renee Simmons says, dinner table nearly fell off my chair. Nah, I don't think I'm falling asleep where there's food. Come on now. That's what keeps me going. Shika Rena says, the beach. Is that crazy though? What time of day was it, Shika? What time of day? Because some people relax on the beach, fall asleep in the sun while they're doing that tan and stuff. Sean DeShield says, many students sleep in class, but not mine. All right. I guess your class is a good one we want to be a part of. Marcia Robin Patrice Bradshaw says an airplane, so like Maya, and a bus. All right, folks. Craziest place. Well, I just got told that one of the craziest places I fell asleep at was in the Panama Canal. I wasn't just tired, though. I'll leave it at that. Nana Pamela Wade says the airport. Let's find out from our guest today. We've got Rashida Godwin Titan to us. Folks, let's give her a warm TDH welcome. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good morning, Jamal, and thank you for having me here.
And welcome back, I should say. Welcome back. I got to ask, before we jump into this most important conversation, Where is the craziest place you've fallen asleep in public?
Um, I guess it would be the plane. Me too. I'm like Maya. I don't trust anybody, so I definitely make sure I get my rest where I need to be, so I don't really fall asleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, in public, no. I don't trust anybody.
I know my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law, she wouldn't even fall asleep on the airplane. She's like, oh, like that. But yeah, I get people who haven't, man. I'm just it's you want to, if you're not comfortable with your surroundings, then yeah. And Charles H. Jefferson II says you won't fall asleep on a Titan tour. Of course.
Oh, thanks, Charles.
Let's get right into it. Just for those who may not know, who've never, for some reason seen you before, just tell the audience a bit about your background and what it is that you do, Rashida.
Okay. I manage Titan Express Bermuda Limited. It's a transportation and tour company. We have about 6 buses in our fleet. We mostly do group transportation, work with the cruise ships with a lot of tours. And we also, my specialty is really just doing the Black History tours, but tours also on enslavement and the other side of the story that's not told of Bermuda's history. It's still Bermuda history. And so I do Mary Prince tours. I do a freedom tour in the city, and I'm actually getting ready to do a tour up at the National Museum in March under the United Nations Day of Remembrance for Enslavement and the slave trade.
I couldn't bring it up fast enough, but I'm looking because I have one of my close brothers. He did one of your tours recently, and with his family. Anyway, he took his young daughter, she's about 4, and she got very much into it. And it was something that I didn't know he was doing it, but I always get the same reaction from people when they do one of your tours. And that reaction, it disappoints me a bit. I'll tell you why it disappoints me. It disappoints me because many of us spent the better part of our formal education in the Bermuda public system.
Yeah.
And private, but public mostly. And none of this was taught to us.
Yeah, but it was deliberate and intentional. We have to remember, even though we had a public school system, or the school system itself, we have a Eurocentric education system. So we're a British colony. So it's still for the benefit of the colony on how we are to be in what they term as educated. It's really teaching is not entirely educated, because to be educated means to impart knowledge onto someone. So we have to educate ourselves, and we have to put that on ourselves, even though parents may come on the bus too, and I put that on back on the parents. I say we have to stop saying that to a degree. It's like myself, not even just myself, is Ajala, Liana, they started on storage just a little while ago. We had Kristen in St. George's. It's several of us who do this work. We even have Steele McLean Esdale, who goes out and does Black History tours as well too. There's several of us out there, and you can reach out to any one of us, and we could educate you and give you the education that you need at this point in time. So we need to remove it from saying that it needs to be in the schools.
Indeed, and Sherry actually said that earlier this month. She, and you'll probably see the video later today, but she spoke about it like, we're not teaching it at home. But let's today we're going to talk about the evolution of racism. We've seen, especially since George Floyd, right? We've seen, people get up and act like they're fans of Blackness and equality. And as you heard me say earlier, my hardest thing is white liberal male politicians, right? Is this desire to act as if they understand us, they fight for us because they like trees, and they're all for equality, right? But then there's justice, and when I speak about justice, I'm talking about changing laws. I'm talking about reparations. We're going a lot deeper. All of a sudden, there's allies on there with you, right? But
absolutely.
What is racism as an educator in the Black space? What is racism in 2023?
It's so interesting you say that because I get around white folks all the time and it's the same conversation. But when we talk about racism, racism itself is actually goes into dismantling a system. And most of us don't want to do that. We don't even want to know the knowledge behind this system and what it took to build this system. We have to, and I'm just going according to even many scholars, when we talk about racism, we have to go into what the definition of racism is. Racism is it's not about not liking someone. That's discrimination when we don't like someone. When we talk about racism, scholars have defined that racism is actually a competitive relationship between groups of people who are competing for the ownership and control of resources, wealth, and power. And those groups only distribute those resources, wealth, and power amongst themselves. It turns into what's called group economics. And then they turn around and then they're with being able to have the resources, wealth, and power and take ownership of that, they're able to subjugate another group through their economic power and that they've created. And that goes into the history of how even slavery, the institution of slavery, was created. So when we define racism, it's not about me not liking you. It's about me being able to build my wealth and then be able to control the resources within that area. And at that same time, I could subjugate you. I could say, I don't want Jamal working here. And I earn that land. Not only do I earn the land, I earn the business on that land. And so I could stop you from getting a job. I could do so. It's one group being able to subjugate another group through that economic power. So that's what
and I've said it for years. I've said it for years. Racism isn't someone calling me a name. That doesn't bother me. What bothers me, that's why, I say this, and people forever never understood this. Donald Trump never bothered me the way he bothered other people. Calling me names doesn't bother me. What you do that impacts the way that I'm able to live and provide and improve my well-being, that bothers me. So I'm more focused in what he's doing than what he's saying.
Yeah.
And I think we're distracted by words. We're distracted by politics. That racism actually is able to prevail even more today. And that brings us to, how has racism evolved over time? Because before it was, it's getting back like that with certain out front, right? Like people saying things, right? But then there's other groups, because they don't say it, people think that they're not supportive of racism. Someone said to me recently, that you have to think of this logically. To end racism would mean a lot of your friends would have to give up a lot of that privilege that they don't even admit that they have.
Absolutely.
But how has racism evolved over time to the point that people just still don't understand it, or it looks different and feels different?
It's almost, I remember I had a young man on tour with me. I think he was even from Cedar Bridge, and he was like, Ms. Godwin, racism, it almost feels like the air, like it's there. I know it's there. I can feel it. I feel the tension, but I can't really put my finger on it and prove it. And I tell them, yeah, that's about it. They've done such a good job. We have to go back into the history and understanding the history and how it comes forth today. So I'm going to just give a quick historical analysis on it. Racism itself, again, based on the definition that I gave, because it's again about group economics. So in the early 1500s, we have 9 European nations all competing for this wealth, the resources, wealth, and power, especially on this side of the world. But in order to be able to build the power structure that they wanted to build, they got black borders. They went to places like Africa, or they enslaved the indigenous borders that were already in those places. So they used the black borders to build white wealth, essentially. And there's even many books out that even just say that title that I just said, that you can read about this. And so when we're talking about that, so they've had this power for hundreds of years, even though laws came into place, even in Bermuda, we have emancipation, but we have for 200 years of one group of people being able to build wealth for 200 years. And then after that, the blacks are given emancipation, but that's still like freedom in quotes, because then they don't have anything, even though that their borders were used to to build the wealth. They were never given any type of economics for anything. They were just told, you're free, just get off my land, do something with yourself. But most of them just stayed there because they had nowhere else to go, because that same economic structure put other laws in place to say that they couldn't be out about anywhere. And so then shortly after that, then, like you said, the voting comes into place. You couldn't vote unless you owned property. Even here in Bermuda, you ask folks, when we go into the history, when was the first true universal adult suffrage vote? That meant one man of equal vote of equal value. Mal, when that took place?
That was 2003's election.
Yeah, 2003.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, I actually knew that, but it was so, when I read Dr. Ewart Brown's book, it really told me, Jamel, that wasn't that long ago.
No, that's today.
Correct.
Yeah. And then the second thing to that is, when was Britain, because during slavery, in order, that's how Britain built its wealth. And where Bermuda is a British colony, Bermuda's not an independent country, it was still a British colony. So being part of the British colony, Britain built its wealth off of slavery. And slavery, of course, was right here in Bermuda. We had the story of Mary Prince and others. And but Britain took out a debt for that. They could not pay, when emancipation came about, were not able to compensate the enslavers on their own. They went out and got a loan for it. And so they call it Britain's slave debt. And Mal, when was Britain's slave debt paid off?
That was in 2016 or 7?
2015.
15. Okay, 15.
Yeah.
And folks, it's just testimony. Again, to do this show, you have to read a lot. And to be honest, I'm inspired by Rashida and her husband and their team, because Anna Jala, these lot have inspired me to learn more. And what happened, I tell you, as I went to the African American Museum in DC in, I want to say 2018 or 2017. I went in 2017, and I learned so much, Rashida. And I tell you, what you're doing is the same as that institution that they built. But what you just said is, I want to touch on a few things. One is, when slavery was basically ended, right? When they ended slavery, there were a lot of Black people who were enslaved who did not want to be freed because they didn't have any place to go. They didn't have any place to go. They didn't have any resources, right? So some of them wanted to stay. I learned that. There was also the thing where you just explained that what the slave owners were paid. They were given resources. They were paid based on the money that they would lose, right? Economically. No. I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead and saying this, because I know you've said this before, but what we all need to understand, I hope this sticks with the audience today.
Yeah.
Those slave owners, right, that were paid that money.
Yeah.
They were judges. They were police officers.
Yeah.
Right. They were bankers.
Yeah.
Right. Bankers. I'm not just talking about the US. I'm talking Bermuda now.
Yeah.
So you look at if you go back in history and you look at some of the names on these, and I'm sure Rashida's gonna go here, right? We're having a no holds barred conversation this morning. If you look at that, you will see how racism still impacts Bermuda today.
Absolutely.
Take it over, Rashida. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Absolutely. I mean, come on, people. What's the industry that runs Bermuda? You might as well say, right? You can put it in the comments. I don't need to manage it. Say it. What's the number one industry in Bermuda today? We're supposed to have two pillars to our economy, but right now it looks like we only have one pillar, and that one pillar is, that's basically the work that they do, even though many folks say, they provide jobs, they do a lot for the country. But, you say to folks, well, do you get a profit from these companies? That wealth is distributed only amongst a certain group of people. and they distribute that wealth amongst themselves. And so, these are the things we really need to think about. And when we define racism, we also have to look at how are Blacks. So where are you in this equation? We really need to consider that. Where have we been in this equation? And if we want to start to, build wealth ourselves, what do we need to do going forward? Even though we're having this conversation, we really need to figure out, what do I need to do going forward? Do I need to figure out on how I could create a business of my own? What can I do? Because again, racism, again, like you said earlier, is literally about dismantling systems that have been in place for hundreds and hundreds of years.
But that's pretty hard to do when you take some of the brightest and best and you put them in positions where they're making a good money per se, and they're not going to rock the boat again. People who feel like they're benefiting from a system, whether they be Black or white, they're not going to do anything even though they may possess the intellect and the fight. They're not going to utilize it. Now, I want to go on to this our good friend, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So, there was the George Floyd murder, and then there were marches around the world, people taking a knee, and so on. We even saw, companies who have been known to be racist putting their Black people up front and going for it. How do you believe diversity, equity, and inclusion has impacted racism, good or bad, as it comes to the system itself?
We have, that's the thing. We have to, and this is, lots of times, even when I take my young people on tours, that's the part that they do even get upset about is, when we tend to confuse social integration with economic integration. It's just, that's all it is. It's social integration. It's being able to say, I could come and in this restaurant or come to this hotel and have a drink and have some dinner, whereas before we were not able to go there. That's just social integration, but it's not saying, let me go build my own hotel so that I could continue to, employ some certain people and start to build wealth and build a legacy for myself. This is where a lot of our conditioning on how we think needs to change. And so we tend to confuse definitely social integration with economic integration, and we have to stop doing that because it's everything. And some folks would agree, some folks won't, but many things have. Pretty much everything's been at the detriment of Black people, even when it comes to social integration. It really has.
And so, do you? I want to switch it from that now because we have what was once referred to as a Black government, right? You and I have talked many times over. I've had this conversation on this show. Black people tend to think that political power is economic power.
No.
Speak to us about why a Black government is not necessarily an end to racism.
Sorry, absolutely not. Because it's still the root of the tree. We have to, like I said, we have to go back and define terms on what they mean. Even Bermuda itself, Bermuda is a colony. So we are a colony. We are still working for the benefit of the so-called, what they say, mother country, not my mother, but the mother country of Britain. And that's why we still had the British governor here, but they've pretty much got us down into when it comes to social integration, and they could see what satisfies us and what don't. And a lot of people, because they would say even to me, yeah, Rashida could say what she wants. A lot of people's not going to listen to what she has to say, because they're happy, with the social integration, and that's enough. They're not worrying about any type of economic integration. So just like we say with a lot of these systems, the education skill system and the politics and stuff, it's still based off of that Eurocentric system that's not for the benefit, and it has never been for the benefit of Blacks. And we have to get back into the historical analysis of that to be able to even understand it further.
And we've got a question from the audience. Tiffany Painter says, is there any way to see which families continue to receive slave debt payments from Britain and how much they receive?
Yes, it is a website, Tiff. Got your email, Tiff, and I will email you. I can't remember offhand what's the name, but it is a British university actually keeps count of all the funds that went out. And I'm gonna actually, I'll send it to you, Tiff, and you could look at all the names of the families there. Yeah.
Alrighty. We have Renee Simmons, who says the Commission of Land Grabs revealed that many affluent white lawyers behind Black Bermudians losing their properties. Again, we speak about how racism's evolved. Now, before it was very blatant, right? Things like that happening. Now is if you speak out, they, well, you're not going to get a job. You're this, you're that. But it's not just the whites; it's the Black people as well. There's this thing where, and I'm going to say this because respectfully. So I asked, I went to this Black Chamber event in Palm Beach a couple weeks ago. And one of my partners, she's both of my partners actually, they're very much churchgoers, whatnot. And one is very deep into her sorority. And my question was this, and this is not to offend anyone because I love you all, trust me. But I asked myself, why does religion and the Greek life have Black people in particular in such a chokehold? Right. And how does this impact dismantling the very system that we're speaking of that contributes, that is racism?
Absolutely. Again, I think it's just folks just not knowing, or not even just knowing, but not completely understanding the history. I mean, if you knew anything about the Greeks during history, you would not want, especially Black people, you would not want to affiliate anything with them. They're the ones that actually went into Africa. They learned everything they knew in Africa. They went to Africa to be educated, and they took all that knowledge from Africa and they created it. They brought it back to Europe with them, and then they went, pretty much still everything that they learned from Africa. And then they started to say that they created it themselves. I mean, I could just give you one example. We have the white man they call Pythagoras theorem. And of course, in math, we talk about Pythagoras. But that information was already created by Imhotep. Imhotep was an African king out of, at that time, it was what they call it now, Egypt. But it was called Kemet. And that's where actually a lot of the math science came from, right there out of the Black African kingdom called Kemet. And his name was Imhotep. And that's he created the pyramids through his math. But then we have European scholars who say it was Pythagoras theorem. But Imhotep was 2,000 years before Pythagoras theorem. That's just one of the many examples. Pretty much everything that's Greek is from Africa. And I know this through my studies, and not just through my studies, but I also, and this is something I even study with other whites, and we come across this all the time, and yeah, it's baffling. And I just say, folks just really didn't understand that history. So we kind of have to, sometimes, unfortunately, we have to be hard on the cause and not on the people. So I really try to do that.
I like that. And that's something I have to learn. Yeah. Be hard on the cause, not the people. Michael Daniels makes a great point. He says, disunity is and always has been the greatest enemy of Black people. Let's speak about that because, I probably am most disappointed in the Bermuda Progressive Labor Party because I feel like they missed an opportunity. But as you keep saying, maybe I just set myself up for failure because at the end of the day, we're a British colony. I'm not here to use territory. We are what we are. So could we ever have expected anything more? But saying that is, when it comes to Black unity, we have Black people that say, oh, racism isn't there. You all just making excuses, this, that, and the other. I actually appreciate the sororities and fraternities for the brotherhood and sisterhood. I think there is a sense of unity that they display, the sports clubs and so on. But then economically, we're so fractured, right? We're so fractured. How do we mend these broken bonds of Blackness?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Like I said, it's about being, again, hard on the cause and not on the people. And we would be fractured. Again, going through a historical analysis, you have to remember for the first 200 years that Black people were even in this country. And when I'm talking about Black people, they also turned Native American people. Anyone who wasn't white was considered Black, right? And they pretty much enslaved them. Even if they were indentured servants, they were still viewed as slave labor. And so for 200 years, that was the state of these people. And that's the condition, and of course the religion was there to sustain that thinking on both sides of the Blacks and the whites. And so then you have Black people who were property. They were property for 200 so years. And then you're learning not to be property. How could you not be fractured? fractured in your thinking. That's why when we do the Mary Prince tour, we really hone in on Mary Prince's mother, Sue. Sue was forced to go into Hamilton to put her children up for auction, and then she has had to take the money back to the white enslavers to pay for a wedding that they wanted to take place. She was somebody's property. And that's where we get into also what's called generational trauma that we passed on to each other. This trauma, and we don't know where this trauma comes from, but the trauma is definitely historical trauma from slavery that we've passed on to the various generations. And that's why we would be fragmented, and disunity amongst our people. It makes sense. If you understand the history of what took place and what happened, it makes sense. But we have to go back to understand it in order to be able to heal moving forward.
Thank you for that. And before we let you go, Maya Palacio, she's asking, are persons in Bermuda on the list that you were speaking of, where people can find out?
Absolutely. The last names of their Trimminghams, Coopers, Whites, it's there. Yeah, they have the list, the itemized list, and it says how much they were paid out during emancipation, for compensation. Yeah.
Just tell people what it is that you do to help people understand racism and how to deal with it. And I don't say deal with it like just live with it, but how to, take it on head on.
Right. Well, like I said, racism itself is again, as a group of people who are able to subjugate another group of people by being able to control the distribution of the resources, wealth, and power within that country, with land and stuff like that. So what I try to do is help people understand the history that took place and why we're not able to, move forward in the way that we should have moved forward all this time. And so, like I said, one of my tours that I really enjoy doing is the Mary Prince tour, because we're able to get into how, over the several hundred years, how even Blacks got this generational trauma that's still stuck in many of us and stuck in many of our families. And, many of us would dismiss many family members and even say that person's crazy or what is wrong with them. But unfortunately, we have a lot of generational trauma that we need to heal. And we need to heal on this island. It's lots of it. We're not cursed, so we need to stop saying that we're cursed people. We have did nothing to be cursed. We have nothing to reconcile because Black people did not do anything. Something was done. Slavery was an ordeal that happened to Black people that we have to heal from. Remember, after slavery, after all of that trauma that took place, even within their bodies and everything, as well as their psyche, there was no one there. There was no therapist. There was no one to talk to. It was still about just getting on with what needs to be done. And they were still continuously exploited. Of their labor was exploited to continue to build the wealth for others. So that's what I really try to get across in my tours, and so that people could be able to leave somewhat empowered and be able to figure out a way forward for themselves. No one's coming to save us. No one's coming to save us, and we have to figure this out, a way for ourselves going forward.
Yeah, and before you go, Maya Palacio, she's asking, what about the names of persons they enslaved so we can find our ancestors? Are they on the list?
I'm not sure if they're on the list. I think they normally have just the count of how many people they enslaved. Well, she gets to that. I'm actually going to be working with something with Leonie Genius, because I really want to find out some of my descendants as well. And so in the near future, we're going to have some things coming out. And it's just pretty much going to be like trace your roots for Bermuda.
Okay, all right. Well, let the people know how they can get in touch with you if they have some young people or anyone in their lives that they want to experience one of your tours, learn a bit more. How can they get in touch?
You could contact me at TitanToursBermuda.com. You could email me at info@TitanToursBermuda.com, or you could call me at the contact number is 234-1096. This month for Black History, I didn't even put out any tours for Black History because, I'm not really into celebrating Black History. The mere fact that I have to remind someone to acknowledge me, I still have a problem with that. But some families contacted me and wanted me to share history with them, so I still took them out. And even if a family contacts me or folks, I will still take them out. Yeah.
I agree with you. And we didn't even get into that say, but Black History Month, you all know how it bothers me. Like, I just think it's not for us. It's for, at this point, it's like many other things. It's like pride and all of that. It's literally, it's like how I see charity for rich folk. Like, charity is for rich folk. It's for them to look good. I think Black History Month and Latino Month and Pride Month, it's all about corporations making it seem like they're allies. The truth is, many of these so-called allies will not give up anything so that true justice could prevail. And that, I think, is the lesson in all of this. Our history is every day. And that's why we are thankful for people like yourself for ensuring that people have access to information that they never had before. And as you'll see later on today on our social media channels, something Sherry said earlier this month, it's not being taught at the home, right? It's our responsibility. Rashida, thank you so much. Let's be in touch. We're going to go a bit deeper in this conversation on Jamel Hartman Unscripted very soon. I just put in the spot. But we're going to go, because Rashida actually took a trip to Benin recently, and we're going to have a very in-depth conversation. So, folks, if you don't already, make sure you follow Jamel Hartman on YouTube. So that conversation should be coming over the next month. Let's put her on the spot. We didn't agree that. I just make it. I am. Little brother, I'm like that. But Rashida, thank you so much, and we'll be in touch.
Okay, great. Thanks for having me. Have a great day, everybody.
All right. Rashida Godwin, folks, if you appreciated today's conversation, please give us a thumbs up, a love, a like. Please share it. Please share it. Please share it. Take the YouTube link, share it in your WhatsApp chats. This information is necessary. It is necessary. It is necessary. Stick with us. We're going to have a daily play after this, and we'll wrap it up. And if you were paying attention, you will know the answer to this daily play.
A lot happens around your home. That is why at One Communications, we have introduced affordable security and video monitoring, because everyone should be able to afford to protect their family. Anytime, from anywhere, One Home Security keeps you connected and puts security in your hands with an easy-to-use smartphone app to control everything. Home security is important to keep you and your family safe. Motion-activated cameras around your home and security monitoring within create a complete security system providing protection both inside and outside your home. Professional monitoring means that there's someone on call with 24/7 protection to notify the authorities and help keep you and your loved ones safe. We are dedicated to whole home protection with indoor and outdoor cameras, smart door locks, motion sensors, and more, so you'll always be connected to what matters most. With professional installation, no upfront hardware fees, and low monthly rates, because keeping your family safe should be affordable for everyone. Total home video monitoring and security, there's no better way to protect your home than with One Home Security.
All right. Thanks again to One Communications, Lindo's People's Pharmacy, and Medical House for ensuring that we can do this on a daily basis. Also, thank you to Rashida Godwin. Folks, if you appreciate that conversation, please give us a thumbs up, a love, a like. We really, really, really appreciate you, tuning in and engaging. But please make sure you share these conversations. They are so important for our well-being. All right. Time for the Daily Play, brought to you by Bermuda Trivia, now available at stores throughout Bermuda. Follow Bermuda Trivia on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok to find out why it's Bermuda's favorite trivia game. All right, audience, are you ready? Can I get a yes? Can I get a yes? Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? All right, so I guess that means you're ready. All right, Rashida said it earlier during the show, so if you're paying attention, you might get the answer. What year did the first election take place where it was one man, one vote? What year? Let's give you a time clock. See if you can beat Sherry. You know Sherry's time is the buzzer. All right. All right. You were paying attention, Diane Elliott and Karen Simmons and Sheldon Fox and Mark Arthur C. Phillips. You were all paying attention. Well, Sherry wouldn't have got it. Nana Pam got it as well. Nana Pam got it as well. Maya says she would have got it as well. So I don't know, folks. I don't know. Everyone got it. But look, I'm going to say this before we head out. I think conversations like today are so, 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 so important. And so many people dismiss it. People feel like, oh, it's in the past, it's history. But as Rashida said, a lot of, where we are today is because we don't understand where we come from. There's a sense of pride and belief. Some young people are inspired by what their ancestors done and their families have accomplished, and they want to go out and build on those legacies. It's helpful. Rondell Richardson says, this has been an informative show. Thanks, Miss Godwin. And Jamel and Karen Simmons says, the information, clarity of knowledge shared today by Rashida was on point. Thank you. Folks, it's time to say goodbye. We've got more great shows coming up this week, but make sure you subscribe to our website and follow us on social media to stay up to date for all that we have going on. Please help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to improve our community. Thanks again to our partners, Medical House, One Communications, Linda's, and People's Pharmacy for ensuring that we're able to do this with you on a daily basis. As always, we appreciate you, we love you, and we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we'll be back to do this again with you tomorrow. I'm Jamel Hartman. My friends, please do make it a safe and a great day. I'm out. Peace.